Hello and welcome. I'm Phil Loicono for Tea Party HD. You know how to spot a rhino in the closet? They become independents when they lose the Republican nomination. Why else would you allow the possibility of a liberal to win if you are a real gamer? Will Murkowski be outed? Speaking of games, are Republicans getting the message that they're going to have to share the basketball court with the Tea Party? Or will they try to take their ball and go home, as Cornyn suggests, with his unwavering support of Murkowski? But remember, the establishment Republicans from the NRSC are on the plane to Alaska to help Murkowski. Black conservatives like Tim Scott, Bill Randall, Star Parker, and Allen West represent the revitalized conservative movement. These candidates are already making an impact on America. When you compare Allen West to, say, Maxine Waters, Charlie Rangel, or, well, any member of the Congressional Black Caucus, or as we have found, the Congressional Socialist Caucus, got vodka? Black conservatives may finally get their chance to show the true range of thought among blacks. Here's Allen West in action.
The first thing you got to do is you got to study and understand who you're up against. And you must realize that this is not a religion that you're fighting against. You're fighting against a theopolitical belief system and construct. You're fighting against something that's been doing this thing since 622 AD, 7th century, 1,388 years. You want to dig up Charles Martel and ask him why he was fighting the Muslim army at the Battle of Tours in 732. You want to ask the Venetian fleet at Lepanto why they were fighting a Muslim fleet in 1571. You want to ask the Christian, the Germanic and Austrian knights why they were fighting at the gates of Vienna in 1683. You want to ask people what happened at Constantinople and why today is called Istanbul, because they lost that fight in 1453. You need to get into the Quran. You need to understand their precepts. You need to read the Surah. You need to read the Hadiths. And then you can really understand this is not a perversion. They are doing exactly what this book says.
For Ken Buck, the buck doesn't stop here, as he suggests getting rid of the Do Energy and education. Since the founding of the Do Energy under Jimmy Carter, over $500 billion has been spent to lessen America's dependence on foreign oil. Yet we find ourselves with a department with 16,000 plus employees, 100,000 support employees, and no less dependent on foreign oil. As for the Do Education, all one has to do is look at high school dropout rates, and you see that Buck may have a point. I say, buck the system. Republican Rand Paul talks debt, and yep, more debt. Paul is obviously not a student of Obamonomics, where you can spend your way out of debt. No, Rand Paul, the Republican Senate candidate from Kentucky is old school and believes that you should pay as you go. I seem to recall something about this being mentioned in Congress.
When the Democrats took control of the Congress, we made it a rule of the House that we had to abide by pay as you go. Now we have a President of the United States committed to sign this legislation, and we were able to pass it not as a rule of the House, but as a statute, as a law of the land.
Mike Lee of Utah may be the Bruce Lee of fair tax, as he wants to repeal the progressive income tax. I'm sure many would agree, as the current system seems to be a little more than a political tool to divide the masses. A fair tax? Well, that's just too fair. Lee could also deliver a few karate kicks on behalf of the oil companies. As Joe Miller emerges from an Alaskan pipeline, the Pine Grove as unshaven, sporting lumberjack dude, and a warm, nice guy smile, with the personification of Sarah Palin-like appeal, she endorsed him. He is a real conservative who most believe will listen and legislate. As we lead you into a series of political cartoons, starting with All Eyes on Lisa Murkowski and the NRSC, a teachable moment, could it be that the Obama White House and the Democratic Party machinery, indeed the progressives, are all missing something crucially?
Class, it's time once again for the Blacksphere.net's Teachable Moments, where you always learn something about the left even if it isn't what they were trying to tell you.
Teachable moment.
If you'd gone to college, you could have really been something.
I could have calibrated those words differently.
In 1948, LBJ was behind in a primary runoff by 350 votes with 40 left to count.
There is divisiveness among us all tonight.
But Johnson said there were more ballots out there. How did he know? Well, a few hundred more did arrive, like the last-minute votes from Jim Wells County. CBS News later reported Judge Luis Salas admitted he certified 202 fraudulent ballots, all for LBJ.
I have put the unity of the people first. I put it ahead of any divisive partisanship.
Cast at the last minute in alphabetical order, and all 202 voters later determined to have been dead. LBJ said that's how it's done in Texas. He won by 87 votes. In 2008, Al Franken taught us that's how it's done in Minnesota. Senator Murkowski, we can see Alaska from our backyards, and we're watching you.
So, I would ask all Americans, whatever their personal interests are concerned, to guard against divisiveness.
This ends up being what's called a teachable moment.
Find more online at theblacksphere.net. Class dismissed.
I'm Phil Loiacono for Tea Party HD. See you next time.